Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of year. Is it a horror show or could it be behind sign merchants coming out of their shell? But more importantly, it's the biggest blank game week of the season. Gameweek 29. No Egyptian, but which direction do we go down? Welcome yet again to another edition of the FPL Addicts Podcast. And as always, go. Homer Simpson once said in the Simpsons movie, to Bart, it's probably the worst day of your life so far. But in this case, it is the biggest blank game week of the season so far. But we've still got to work out what we've got in front of us. So because of this, we've got the Cavalry of Life. We've got the usual Reidy, who's probably added a couple of sponsorships in the week. And the Army from Elton John's famous football club. The historic moment of Almunia saves it. Now here come Watford. It's the Yellow Army. Good evening to you, first of all, Roberto. Welcome for the first time to the Addicts Podcast.
Hello. Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on, guys. And really excited to look ahead to the big blank we've all been dreading these last few weeks. It's finally come. So, yeah, will it completely destroy our ranks or will it be a big sigh of relief? We'll have to see. But no, pleasure to be on.
Reidy, good evening to you as well. How's things been for you?
Good evening, Chaza. Pretty decent, hectic week, but that's what it's like when you're a family of four these days, no rest for the wicked and all that business. But yeah, plenty of thoughts on the game week that's up and coming because, yeah, it's like you kind of said at the beginning, it could be an absolute catastrophe or it could be seventh heaven. So, I know Roberto's, full of experience now, the amount of podcasts and the amount of appearances. He'll be getting appearance fees soon. So I hope you're paying for this one, Chaza. But yeah, he's on finally. So that's good. It's good to have him on. And I'm going good, mate.
That's good. Roberto, briefly, how have you found the new format of the game? It's a question I like to ask each of the guests that come on for the first time this season. 5 transfers, assistant manager. How's this changed the landscape in terms of how you think about future planning for your own fantasy side?
Yeah, I feel like this season, more than a lot of the other seasons I've played, this has been more chaotic than ever, really. And there's been some elements of the changes to the game that I've liked. The 5 rolled free transfers, I think, is a really good addition because it does not just reward the casuals that potentially miss a few deadlines and, have to then they don't fall as far behind as they did previously where, you've missed those 2 free transfers. They can start to make improvements if they've missed a couple weeks. But also it means the engaged managers can be a bit more patient with their transfers and, have a bit more strategy when it comes to if they don't think their team needs to change, they can kind of leave it. So that element of it, I think, is really good. But the assistant manager coming in as the new sort of mystery chip, I really don't like. I just think it kind of goes away from a lot of what FPL has previously been about sort of focusing on player points, focusing on players getting assists and goals rather than sort of team outcomes. And it's especially kind of blocking your other chips being used and taking up another spot from those clubs. It's been too much of a disruption for me. And obviously the kind of late double game week announcements haven't helped help with planning and sort of trying to look ahead with chip strategies because those have just gone out the window when those kind of back-to-back doubles have come in. So, yeah, it's been a hectic season, I have to be honest. Quite a roller coaster of a season, but I have to admit the price changes have been kind of crazy. And certainly at the start of the season, I thought the way that the prices were kind of revealed at the start, compared to last season's pricing, has made for a much more entertaining game because it means, Haaland's price is making it much harder to kind of justify him in terms of how the rest of your squad looks. And yeah, it means we've got more decisions basically to make. The only kind of easy thing for our team has been keeping Salah at this point.
Fair way to put it all, that's for sure. On to last week. Now, we've got to mention last week, we had a good watch along, didn't we, Roberto? Especially at the Thirsty Bear back in London.
Yeah.
FPL Meets, Salah breaking a record. Just a couple of words. How did you find the event and catching up with everyone?
Oh, it was absolutely brilliant. I mean, I loved it so much. I went to the Thirsty Bear, I think in November time, I think it was, of 2023 for a Planet FPL meetup. But that was the first time I'd done an actual official FPL Meets. And yeah, I genuinely think that day made my year, honestly. It was so enjoyable to see such great people, to have such great conversations. And the irony of it is that obviously the FPL Meets curse being what it is, it was always going to be the way. We'd all have stinking game weeks, but the company that we had, kind of made that not matter. And yeah, some amazing people having chats with the likes of Oscar, FPL Focal, yourself, really great chats with the likes of Lord Siphius as well. Some really, really fantastic people there. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, considering of how painful it was as a game week, it made it all the better for some great company, some great food, and some great vibes, in all honesty. So yeah, really loved the occasion.
First play. And Reidy, just quickly, how do you find these FPL Meets and FPL events, fest events, I should say in general, in terms of bringing the community together?
I mean, the fact that they're still going is a big thing, really, in a way, because obviously when it first come about and it was organised by the likes of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm just going off what I remember, but Nima and FPL Fella and people like that who've organised these meets, and they were going strong, and then it started to kind of expand to different parts of the country, and people were doing them within their locations and stuff like that. So I don't mean that in a bad thing, as if it's dropped off as such, by saying the fact that it's still going, but it just goes to show is that there's still people in the community that do want to take part in this, and do, we all share that interest still in the FPL. And yeah, I just think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. I haven't been to one for, oh God, I can't even remember. I can't remember. I went to Fest, and that, we're talking 2-3 years ago, maybe Fest was now. And that was when it was actually in the old location, which I know I think they've only done one so far in the new one, haven't they? Did you go to that one, Roberto?
The one at the start of the season.
Yeah, the one at the start.
Yeah, because that was the first one they'd done at the new venue, wasn't it? And I have to say, it was a massive, massive upgrade. So yeah, I loved it, and I'll be honest, I didn't. Looking back at it now, when I went in August, I didn't make the most of it when it came to photos and talking to people. I did do that, but I didn't do it as much as previous times I've gone to Fest, because I don't know why. The game week 1 of this season, I was just so stressed with my team. So I was literally making changes to my team to the point where I was I wasn't even really just chilled. I wasn't really having those photos as much as previous years. But no, it was a great event. And yeah, as you rightly pointed out, yeah, really good this year. And yeah, looking forward to it again this year as well. So it's every year. I love Fantasy Football Fest, and that alongside Meets, they both are so well run and really enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think one other thing in regards to what you're saying about Fest and stuff, what's difficult, and we don't probably think about this, right? You go on the average night out with your mates, or you have a family event or something, right? There's never one. So a wedding, everyone's there to see people get married, or you have a drink after and all that business. But there's never normally a thing that's so distracting to people, where everyone's going to be on the phones, and you're saying you didn't get enough pictures of people and whatnot.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because everyone's thinking the same thing. Have I picked the right team? Have I got the right players? You might have a chat.
And you just wish you did you'd take the moment in and let it kind of take
it's hard,
you over.
It's so difficult though, isn't it? Because everyone's in that same boat of going, have I done this?
And to coin the phrase of the podcast, we're all addicts, aren't we, at this game? So we want to do well, we want to score points, and sometimes that can kind of take over our sort of other concerns that we'd usually have. So yeah, it's hopefully I'll be a lot more chilled for Fest this year. But
Stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Well said from you both. Really good. And I really like how you epitomise the Addicts motto there. Now, I know Reidy is on a strict time limit, so I would briefly just say hello to everyone. Gary, as always, thank you for dropping by. Calm, our Fulham go-to when it comes to breaking news or just takes pictures of our team bus each week. Thank you as well for joining. Miriam, thank you as always. What we got? Painful remind everyone of your score this game week. Roberto, about to get on that shortly. It's by the sounds of it. Am I shooting blanks this week? And let's face it, I shoot blanks every week on this pod. And in fairness, on this too, a funny story, it's not a shaving incident. I actually fell off a wind trainer during the week. Had it in, plugged with a resistance wheel, smashed my bike into a wall because it wasn't on properly. There you go.
Oof.
Ouch.
Yes.
Heavy one. So it's not a love bite, Chaza, no? Oh, yeah, cheeky. What did you do after Meets, eh? Yeah, I see.
Well, let's speak about love and let's give a bit of love to Roberto's team because he put on a decent score this week. The floor's yours.
Yeah. Not too bad, 62 points. I'll be honest, I was looking at this week and expecting a red arrow. It looked like it was going to be heading into that West Ham Newcastle game because I think I was about 2 or 3 points off the safety score. And I thought to myself, well, everyone's got Isak. You know, I need Bowen here to do something for me. He's quite low owned. But in the end, they both blanked. But yeah, it didn't matter. And the safety score, I think, was 62 and I just got 62. So it's a very, very small green arrow. But at this stage of the season, when we're just kind of getting through weeks, I rolled my transfer because I basically had kept Gakpo up to this point for the Southampton game, thinking, yeah, this is the week I want him. This is the week he could go off. And obviously, he got that injury in Gameweek 25. A lot of people moved him to sort of the likes of Watkins and Cunha. And I just thought, no, I'm not doing it. Obviously, Watkins in that time has done really well, which is a shame. If I'd have moved him to Cunha, that would have gone badly. So I'm glad I didn't do that. But yeah, it's a real shame because I was hoping Gakpo, even if he just got minutes off the bench, would have been really good this week. But instead, I had my first sub being Dango. He came on for him. And obviously, he was benched also. So yeah, not the most ideal of weeks, but a shout out to my guy Henderson. I mean, he has been really my sort of season changer, to be honest. I brought in Henderson in game week 19, I believe, because I had Flecken on the wild card back in game week 6, and he was just rubbish, absolutely terrible. And since I've owned Henderson, he has just been sensational for me. So that was lovely, to be honest. When it was originally 11, and then Sarr got all 3 bonus in that Ipswich game, which I was a little bit salty about, but you know what, a 10-pointer, we're not going to complain with that. But yeah, the rest of the defense, no clean sheets, and Timber with a nice attacking return, picking up a little a cheeky assist there. So yeah, look, the defense not amazing, but you know, I think I saw a lot of people have sort of their kind of Forest defenders on the bench this week. No Palace defense potentially hurt a lot of people, so pretty happy with that defense all in all.
Excellent, top stuff, Roberto. I love it.
And then the rest of the team, midfield wise, yeah, not ideal with blanks from the kind of Bowen and Dango picks, as well as Palmer. But I was never even considering, to be honest, Cole Palmer captain. I know a lot of people, you know, thought there wasn't much in it, but I thought there was very much in it because the fact he blanked that Southampton game just showed to me he could have potentially did that against Leicester. Would I have said he would miss his first ever penalty in his career? Absolutely not. So that's a cruel swing, really, for those that did take the plunge. But I just thought, don't overthink this. Sometimes in FPL, we can kind of get into our own sort of heads a bit too much and overthink stuff. And it was the FPL GOAT at home against the worst team, probably the Premier League seen since that Derby team. So I had no doubt he was going to be my captain. Obviously, I didn't expect him to be losing at half time, Liverpool. And so that meant, you know, Salah's chance of playing, you know, longer was better, and obviously ended up playing 90. So the X minutes were actually higher for Salah than Palmer, who kind of got subbed off early. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, Salah's just the GOAT at this point, and yeah, he's incredible, beating his own record with, you know, 9 game weeks left. It's just insane at this point. So yeah, obviously, you know, I score a decent score, but basically half those points coming from Salah. So all love towards him, really.
Yeah.
And then finishing off the forwards, both blanking. Chris Wood, I've genuinely been in love with this season. He is pretty much carried my team since a wildcard of Game Week 6, because the rest of that wildcard 6 team was quite simply diabolical. I think that Game Week 6, I had something like an 8 million Game Week rank, like not good at all. And then, just kind of plummeted down each week. But Wood was the only one that kept on delivering, and he's just been in there since then. And he's just been so good. But I can excuse him blanking against Arsenal and City because, they're not easy matches. But I think Isak, to me, the fact people were selling Isak ahead of West Ham was just insane because of what Eddie Howe said about him, training all week. It looked good that he'd start the game. And I know not a few Newcastle fans were thinking there's no way he should get risked because of that cup game against Liverpool. But, I thought that, even if he did get subbed in the first, last sort of 10 minutes or so, they needed to win that game, Newcastle, to kind of go into the Liverpool game with a bit of momentum. So I can understand why Isak played. I think that's good for future weeks, but I'm definitely going to be keeping Isak even with this blank game week. So all in all, pretty happy with that. It's a very small green, but we take it nonetheless up to 198k. So pretty happy with that, to be honest.
Yeah. Righto. Excellent. Yeah. Sound. Righto. Thank you, Roberto. Reidy, did you want me to get your team up now?
I'll pop it in there, mate. I'll pop it in. Well, I'll say that. Remove. Wow, there we go. Pop it in. Do you know what? To be fair, I could just say ditto because I ended up with 66 points, which was an extra 4 ahead of Roberto. Now, one thing I noticed there, in terms of starting 11s, we both had 9 players, the same. The only difference was I had Munoz over your Gabriel Roberto, and I had Mbumo over your Bowen.
Yeah.
It was all the same otherwise, and captain the same, obviously, stuff like that. Now, I can't sing, I can't reiterate Henderson's 10-pointer, how good that felt. I mean, the fact that I got the double clean, even better. It was beautiful, like you say. And, I think it was an extra, 4 points I've gained. That was basically Munoz over the Gabriel side of things, with Arsenal not keeping the clean. So I did get a green. It was nice. I mean, I'm chipping away. I can't seem to kind of get past this 300, 200k mark. And I just want to make that jump and try and get somewhere near 100k. So the 66 was definitely nice compared to the week before. And, if you look at the bench, I don't think I had many decisions really to make. Two players out, left with Everton. And I thought, I'll go with the double Palace with the better fixture and so on. So, 66 all out, short and sweet, I guess.
Nice.
That's how we land. How about you, Chaza?
Mate, how do we land? Well, let's just face it. We're just going for insufferable plane crashes each week. That's what I will say, because we ended up on 50 points. And my favourite part of just being half or just bane average each week, because if you guys don't know, I run a burner account. And every week, without fail, every Tuesday, did you beat the game week average? And she's like 52, 54, whatever. And I always have to click no because I'd never beat it.
Yeah, well, yeah. 50 points all out. What did your team look like, Chaza?
Let's just say we raised a bat, but we were nowhere near taking our helmets off. That's a cricket analogy. Look, Pickford, nah. Robinson, nah. Trent, nah. I mean, they somehow conceded against Southampton's version of Voldemort in small bone.
Yeah.
That's insane, isn't it? Aina with the clean sheet, that was probably the bigger buzz while smashing down a 6.5 out of 10 raid to Pepperoni Pizza at the Thirsty Bear. Bumo blank, Palmer blank, Bowen Dango. Roberto's already all over it. Salah captain and Isak Wood. Like, it is vanilla, but it's just sort of vanilla that's sort of been in the same tub for a few days. It's just like, we've already seen it. It's past its prime. And then Mateta just got kicked in the numbskull during the cup. So just out on the bench. And yeah, that's kind of about it. I mean, nothing.
Who'd have thought Aina was your guy that kind of
major week. Yeah.
50, but he got the clean sheet out of the other two. You're expecting Trent clean sheet at least.
Yeah.
Against City, and kind of gets you that extra 4 points. That's
100%. It's one of those weeks, Chris, isn't it? It felt like for instance, in my team, Cliver with his 5 against Tottenham, it could have been more, to be honest, with the goal disallowed because of the Semenyo offside. But it was one of those weeks where if you get a few save points from your keeper or you get an assist from a midfielder, that felt huge this week because of, sort of how low scores were across the board. So, yeah, it was one of those weeks, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of our mini league, Elliot is certainly running away with it, hasn't made an appearance all season. Reidy is 28 points ahead. Now, that's when the actual podcast league begins at second spot. And yeah, fair play to him. And Reidy, speaking of you, because I know we're sort of limited time in terms of what other commitments you've got. What were sort of your plans you wanted to briefly discuss in terms of your side heading into blank Gameweek 29?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like I discussed before I came on, I wanted to not drag it out too much because I know that we've even got the likes of Michael in the chat who's saying if you have Nico Williams already, would you go for Milenkovic, De Ligt, or Aït-Nouri? I can't afford more than 4.8, and that's sort of the way things are heading this week, where people have got blank, players from Newcastle, Liverpool because of the cup final. There's a Cunha suspension. Hall obviously would miss it anyway, but he's injured for the season and so on. And then we've got a Dango problem whereby, he's not starting games anymore. So there are quite a few problems and there are quite a few people who are either have no transfers one transfer. Some people have bagged a few and there's other people playing a chip. So it's certainly a mixed bag. But for me this week, like I say, I don't want to spend too long on it. This is how I'm lining up at the moment. How many players we got on field? 1, 2. No, this isn't. This is how I'm lining up. Yeah, sorry. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 at the moment available. So I'm just a few short, like 3 short. At the moment, I've had a couple of ideas what to do, but this is how I'm kind of looking at the moment. It is going to be something like the following.
Taking Palmer out, yeah, all right.
Palmer out. I think I'm probably going to go for something a lot of people are going for, which would be a Langer.
Yeah.
And then I've got 5.9 to spend, and I'm going for another Forest defender, or say another one, a Forest defender.
And that's good.
It leaves me 1.5 in the bank. So that's where I'm headed at the minute. There are a couple of other ideas that involve, do we get rid of Salah, of course, for a -4? Do we get rid of the likes of Hall for a -4? These sort of things. But I'm really not sure whether that would be an option or that would be a wise thing to do. There is one other option, right, that I'll go through quickly. Now, rather than getting rid of Palmer, who's a playing player for this week, who'd have thought it? He actually plays football. He doesn't return, though. And that is not getting Haaland. That would be to keep Palmer, still get Nico Williams, but instead, I would do this and I would get, he's right there actually, Guardiola. And then the other forward, can you guess?
Erling?
No, it wouldn't be Haaland, so I wouldn't get Haaland. I've got 9.5, bear in mind, Roberto. So who do you think would be an option this week?
How about? Oh,
he's not even on. He's not even on this page. This first page.
Evan Olsen.
Yeah, Pedro.
Evan Olsen.
This guy.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, straight away. I'm not sure. Yeah. Now that is the problem. Because tomorrow we haven't got an early deadline. We may get some City news, team news, and so on. Obviously, the first kickoff times are 3:00.
Yeah.
There's only one thing that unsettles me. Now, this is the more sensible move, I would say, because A, it gets rid of Hall, who doesn't play for the season. B, it gets rid of Trent, who's probably injured for a little while. And C, it gets rid of Cunha, who's banned for 3 games minimum, right? So it does that, but it also leaves me 2.3 in the bank. It's just an issue, though. Marmouche, everyone's probably going to be going Haaland, etc. And yeah, I just don't know if I like it, boys.
Yeah, I prefer.
I can't go for triple Bournemouth. I just
true.
can't do it. I just can't do it as much as that could be an option. But yeah, boys, that's where I'm going. So it's either Nico Williams, Alanga and Haaland, or be Nico Williams, Gvardiol, and Marmoush.
I prefer the first one personally.
You prefer the first one?
Yeah, just because the reason I'll say that is, could Marmoush become an issue sort of 30 when obviously they've got the cup game, haven't they, just before the Leicester game? Yeah. And so if, let's say, for instance, I mean, it might be that Haaland gets the rest, but let's say Marmoush plays, if they go to extra time against Bournemouth, that could be a game that Marmoush doesn't need to play in. So you could maybe potentially, cause yourself an issue. And I do think Gvardiol is an okay pick, but he's a lot of money when you think about the way Brighton are playing right now. I think City do concede. So I think I do slightly prefer going Alanga, knowing that you've probably got more chance of Forest scoring at City than City keeping a clean sheet, I'd say.
I like the first option, but that's probably the second best option. The first option is to delete your team.
Oh, really? Okay.
Savage. Not holding back.
Yeah, I know. There is one of the. You can call it a slight issue, you can call it a major issue, whatever you want to do. But I don't know if you've checked the prices lately, boys. Now, there are predicted to be a lot of changes tonight, up and down. Now, that potentially has an impact on what choices we make. Do we still hold out? Or, because there's so many swings in the price changes happening, do we have to go tonight?
Well, this is the thing. Do we trust... obviously, I have to say, like, Ragaboli at Live FPL has so many of these predictions that are really accurate, but not all of them come through, right? So you could be in a situation where you think, oh, I'm tight for money, let's do it tonight. Then the price rises don't happen. And then we get team news because of the fact there's no early deadline and it's not till 1:30. We get team news for the 3:00 games that change our plans. So it's tough, isn't it? Like, especially because a lot of people are thinking about wildcarding in 31. It feels like a sort of time where team value could be important, but I think information is probably more important. So
I'd have to agree, Roberto. I mean, information is key at this point because we don't know the outcomes of the FA Cups and it's almost like guesswork. But if you haven't got a wild card like myself, a second wild card, that makes it even trickier. So I really hate the fact that I could, end up with less money here. Bear in mind, I have got AM left. And that's the factor that kind of is pushing me towards making some moves tonight. Because I want to make sure I can, use my AM when I need to. I might free hit in 33. But, I don't want to go into all that too much. But it's just mainly on these decisions, for 29 and, 30. And that's as far as it probably goes at the moment.
Are you tempted to AM then in 30 to 32 if you want to use it in 33 free hit?
Yes. Yeah. So that, again, relies on being funds in the bank. You know what I mean? You have to then take that into consideration. So, yeah, boys, that's me. I don't want to, as I say, don't want to think you too much, but there are a couple of options in there. Keeping Salah and keeping Isak, that's my final question. I mean, you boys might have different plans around this, but yes or no?
Well, 100% for me. I mean, I don't know if Charlie thinks the same, but I think Salah being sold is the biggest sort of overthinking in FPL.
Yes.
Like, I know he's not got any doubles, and so you could argue that you might not captain him that often, but there'll be people on bench boost in 33 that take out Salah because he won't have a double. But to me, that's just crazy because that week he's got Leicester. Like, he could easily outscore a lot of the people doubling that week. So Salah's going nowhere for me. Like, the fact that they've gone out of the Champions League in midweek makes it even more a thing. Yeah, definitely. Like, he's going to get more minutes now. After the cup, they've got nothing else to think about. Now, I get a scene on like Black Box that Mark's argument is, potentially their motivation is gone, right? If they wrap up the league by sort of 34, 35, then what are you really having Salah for? And I agree with that, so that maybe he could be expendable sort of with the last sort of 3 or 4 game weeks in mind. But until they've done that, until they've wrapped up the league, I think Salah can't go anywhere. I just think he's just so like he's broken up every record. So why would you sell him at this point?
Yeah, and I think as well, potentially it could be his last season. Obviously, we don't know yet. But if that's the case, even if he doesn't know, whether he's going to be staying or going, he'd want to play as many minutes as possible and potentially go out with a golden boot, a league, maybe League Cup, obviously this weekend. So there are a good few things still riding on him being a big part in what we do for the rest of the season. So I think it's a scary thing to get rid of Mo Salah, considering what he's done, how many double-digit hauls he's got this season. We've seen plenty of times he's more than capable of outscoring everyone, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get rid of Salah. I don't want to get rid of Isak. I got Salah, I think, at 12-7, I want to say. So, it's a lot of value there. You know what I mean? It's a lot of value.
It's going to be hard to get him back. 100%.
Exactly that. So I might end up doing something kind of like this, I end up getting Haaland, but I just don't know yet. I mean, boys, before I finish off, I was considering Aaron Cresswell. That's how deep into the matrix I've got. You know what I mean? That's what's going on. I need to probably, as I said, delete the team.
I think when you get into Aaron Cresswell territory, you might need to sort of take a step back a little bit. But no, the thing is with I looked at Cresswell because he's obviously there's a few cheap defenders right now. When people are thinking about wildcarding in 31, there are kind of quite a lot of cheap defenders like Agbedu at Wolves, like Hill at Bournemouth. But a lot of these players, the reason they're cheap is because they're not 100% nailed. And I think someone like a Cresswell. I wouldn't be surprised if, let's say, Mavropanos came in this weekend against Everton. So, as much as it's tempting to afford players like Haaland in a sort of switch to downgrade, you could just leave yourself with players that aren't first teamers in the next few weeks. So, I just think go with players are going to start.
Yeah. Fair play. Well, I'll have to love you and leave you, but I'll be watching from the sidelines, as they say. I'll be interested to see if Gibbs White is a pick for any of you boys. Because he is someone that I'd love to get him, and if I can get him somehow, squeeze him in there. I'm a bit, another price rise I missed last night. He went up 0.1, but we'll see. So listen, boys, I know it's been short and sweet. Great to chat with you, Roberto. And,
pleasure.
Best of luck for the game week. But as I say to Chaza, as always, not too much of best of luck because I want to stay above him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all good. No, pleasure to have you on. It's your podcast. What am I on about? Pleasure to be in your presence is what I meant to say.
No, it's been great, Roberto, and enjoy, boys. I'll catch you on the other side.
No problem. Sounds good. Thank you, Reidy.
Cheers,
Absolute
Chris.
Top job as always. And just before we travel on, let's have a quick look at the public league because there's always a bit of action going on. Bill Stewart still out on top with a 9-point lead, 59-point game week from him. However, Ollie, exceptional stuff with 81 points in his game week 28. Our team, Roberto, describe to not just me but also the rest of the community. How's this build-up been through the course of the week? For what is so far, and I mentioned it in the intro, you gave me the heads up in the private chat and we saw it on one of your tweets, said it is the biggest blank of game week of the season so far. How is it? Has it been hyped up or not really?
I think it has been hyped up a little bit just because we knew about it for a while, right? And the irony is as well, the fact obviously Liverpool play in the Cup this weekend and the fixture that got rearranged for instance, Liverpool playing Aston Villa, that was due to play this weekend. That game obviously was moved forward into double game week 25. And in the end, because of the kind of FA Cup result for Liverpool, it didn't actually need to get moved forward. So it's funny how things have worked out, really. But yeah, I think because we've known about it for a while, I think people were just from sort of 25, 26 onwards, people have said, right, every transfer you make is with 29 in mind. It's all there in the background and we're all just kind of building towards it. But I also think people do get a little bit over dramatic is the word I'd use when it comes to these blanks, because the casuals certainly will look at their team, they've got 3 or 4 players blanking and they're like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before, I'm just going to activate wildcard, or I'm just going to activate free hit. And us engaged managers, we know the real sort of future doubles, potential projections that Ben Crellin, predicts for us. And so we're not going to start sweating. We're not going to start making rash decisions because we know that although this is a blank game week, all things being considered, it's a pretty minor one with just 4 teams missing out. And, could potentially see a bigger one in game week 34 for around sort of 6 to 8 teams. So saving the free hit, if you can, I think is still definitely the play for later on in the season, or potentially to use it aggressively in a double. But yeah, it's interesting. I think there's been a lot of people getting worried about it, but a lot of people just, if they've planned well up to this point, just going into it with, free transfers and looking pretty well set up, I think.
Yeah, that's well explained right there. And yes, I agree. It has been in the background for a good few weeks. What is also in the background is another update on our women's league, and it's one of our Aussie hometown favourites still in Mira, who's holding to that spot in the top by a 14-point margin. Everyone sort of scoring in the 50s. However, fair play to Risky in 6th spot and Lisa Williams in just rounding off the top 4, both getting scores in the late 60s and just north of the 70-point mark. I'm just trying to figure out. I'm out of mind blank forgetting what the next topic is. That's it. What we learned this week. Liverpool out of the Champions League. As you mentioned, Villa and Arsenal both progressing. Trent Alexander-Arnold out for a good while. Did it come as a surprise for Liverpool exiting the competition this early?
I think it did, definitely. I mean, I think the way that they kind of clung on in that away game against PSG, and Alisson putting in, the performance of a lifetime, and then obviously the irony of him conceding and that mix-up against Southampton with Van Dijk. I think everyone from a Liverpool persuasion, I don't know if Reidy was the same, going into the home game against PSG was thinking tough match, but with how good they were at Anfield and the way they've been this season, especially in big games, that they would kind of potentially, even if it was through extra time, step up to the plate. And it was just such a sort of fascinating game from a football point of view. Before we look at the ramifications that result had at FPL, I think it was just it's one of the best games I think I've watched for years in terms of both managers not looking to kind of do an Ange potentially and throw everything at it in a chaotic way, but equally not sort of not doing too bad of a job when it came to the sort of tactical side of things. So it didn't feel like a game that was hectic, but at the same time there was such sort of a tactical look at it, and there was a great sort of element of, it was just some great football being on display. So as well as it being a great tactical battle, I thought it was a really entertaining game for the neutral. And I mean, how many shots that Liverpool nearly kind of conceded, and they just hung on in that game, and then they had chances themselves. But yeah, ultimately I think they'll be disappointed by the fact they didn't really kind of find that killer goal in normal time. And then it's just a lottery, isn't it? It's just when penalties come, you just hope and pray, and it wasn't on Liverpool's side. And for Darwin Núñez, who's not built up the best of reputations when it comes to accuracy, it was almost written in the stars, wasn't it, for him to be one of the ones that missed it. And yeah, Donnarumma pulled out the big stops.
Yeah, I did also believe that PSG were the better side over 2 legs. So I think them winning the penalty shootout, as much as it's not great watching it from an English football fan perspective, seeing one side get knocked out, but great stuff. Villa, Arsenal, Tottenham getting through to the quarterfinals, Man United getting through to the quarterfinals, and Chelsea in their Conference Farmers League too. And in case anyone wanted to know, I was actually at Stamford Bridge last night for their game. Snapped it up super last minute on the morning of match day. Just couldn't go on, and it was beautiful to be at the bridge on a beautiful Thursday night. Quite nippy, to say the least. Quentin, good morning to you from where you are. Thank you as always for tuning in and being a great supporter of this podcast. Fixtures time. We talked about blanks, it being reduced. Now, usually what we do on this channel, Roberto, is if one picks one standout fixture where it might have huge FPL implications, or a game that they're just genuinely looking forward to. So you can only pick one. So make it wisely. But here's the entourage. What is your standout game?
This is tough because there's a few here, but I think I have to go with Bournemouth-Brentford. The reason I'm going for Bournemouth-Brentford is I think everyone's got Bournemouth attackers, and I don't think Brentford are going to fail to score in this game. The way that Bournemouth the last few weeks have been imploded kind of defensively, Kepa's making a few kind of costly errors. I think those that hold on to the likes of Mbumo and Wissa don't sell them, because this could be a week where, both teams score. But I still fancy Bournemouth to get the job done. It'll be so interesting to see, could Dango get, a shock start, because I'm someone who has him and I'm not feeling confident. But even if he doesn't start, it's the kind of game where I think both teams will go for it. Both teams will play in an open sort of style and setup. So if Dango does come off, the bench for, say, half an hour, 20 minutes, he could definitely have some joy in this game. And, the way that Brentford defend, especially up against their fullbacks. I mean, Rico Henry's, potentially coming back soon as well. So, if he's only just recovered and he starts this game, he might be someone that, if Dango does kind of get some minutes off the bench, might be quite a good player to go up against. And I think this game has goals. If this ends 0-0, I would be absolutely flabbergasted, because defensively, I don't have any faith in either of these sides, really.
Great shout. I think that is probably match around. What is crazy, and it's not actually my standout pick, 2 London derbies on at the same time, North v West and West v North, just to point that out. Going to be a crazy, cagey affair on the London tubes. But my standout game, it's got to have to be Man City Brighton, because there's a big narrative behind which premium to go for this week. Now, with Salah not having a game, it being the Norwegian, who hasn't been spoken about for a good while, despite slowly ticking over returns. It's a big one, especially from a captaincy front, and even Brighton too. Some managers also have Brighton picks. How will their winners fare against Man City's winners, who've been fantastic as of recent times? Probably 2 of the best sides in the league as of now, who've got the best winners, Man City and Brighton. And
definitely, 100%.
Yeah. So that is a standout, but we've got to have a look at another standout aspect, Roberto, and that is the transfer traffic, ins and outs. And far away, any surprises when you look at the top 5? Either.
I mean, I don't think there is really, because let's just say when it comes to FPL, Manchester United players, if they do any sort of good thing, it's the most followed team in the Premier League, probably. So, inevitable that Fernandes would be the most brought in this week. I think even prior to his hat-trick against that Sociedad side, I think he was one of the most transferred in, just because he's shown some really good form these last few weeks. And the fixture against Leicester, it just looks so appetizing. But I think it's one of those where Fernandes, if you've got the money to get to him, he's a great transfer in this week, a potential captaincy option if you're not fancying Haaland or Wood. But it's almost a bit of a luxury transfer. So basically, a lot of people won't have, 11 players or 10 players out, and they'll just focus on kind of selling players with blanks. But if you've got, let's say a full 11 and you can get to Bruno, he could be great this week, especially if you're looking to wildcard in 31 or wildcard later, because although the fixtures are tough for Bruno, and this is sort of maybe the potential downside of him, after this game week, in 30 onwards, it's bad again for Man United. But the thing with Bruno, he's the only exception, I think. Any other United player, maybe not. But with him, obviously, United can play poorly and they just win a penalty and Bruno scores it. So as much as the fixtures are tough, he could be a good long-term shout, especially if, we see Bournemouth end up beating City in the Cup, and a nice little double game we could slot in for Man United there. So, I'm not surprised by him. Chris Wood, I mean, I think everyone was going to expect that, weren't they? It's quite hard to get to Haaland with how expensive he is. And so I think Wood will still be the most owned and probably the most captained. I mean, Haaland obviously will be highly captained, but not many people have got necessarily the kind of patience to go for it, because City this season, I mean, they've just been so poor. So Wood is the easy option. And I think he's just a must have. I think there's not many players in FPL that are essential, but I think Wood is, when you think about price and value compared to Haaland, I think Chris Wood this week is probably in the essential bracket, I'd say.
Well said. On the different areas of assets being looked at in front of us, It's great to see Morgan Gibbs-White finally get some love and has hit the top 5, I believe, for the first time this season. Probably looking at his ownership, it was 6.6 the other day, now 8.8. I did expect it to be a little bit higher still, but he's just been super steady. I mean, 5 assists and a goal in his last 5 league games. You can't really complain with that. A great addition and good fixtures for Forest to follow on after the blank. Their last, well, it shouldn't really be a red fixture. Chelsea at home is a brilliant one. That should be a 3. So, yeah, good fixtures all around for Forest. Before we go to our teams, Roberto, is there any other talking point or aspect that managers may need to be looking out for, or is there anything that you wanted to discuss specifically?
I just think the fact there's a kind of big gap between game week 29 and 30 is really important. Managers realise that, because there could be a position, we don't know this for sure, but like if you can not take a hit this week, then I think that's brilliant. I know a lot of people their hand will be forced, but basically in an ideal world, I think you take a hit in either this week or then don't take a hit in 30 or vice versa. Because I looked at it and thought, oh, well, if I take a hit this week, it's fine. I won't need to then take a hit in 30. The problem we've got is there's international break and there's FA Cup quarterfinals before game week 30. So you could get to a position where you've taken a hit this week, let's say for a Haaland, which makes sense because, you know, if you're going to bring in Haaland, you're going to captain him. But then you could get to a position where, let's say Haaland, you know, got injured against Brighton. Then you're in a position where if he's out for a long term, you could be taking another hit to kind of redistribute that funds because of how expensive he is, right? So if you're, for instance, holding out for Haaland and you take a -4 in game week 29, and you get Haaland in, and then you were planning on getting him because of the fact that he had that Leicester game in 30, and then he's injured by then, again, that's another thing to think about. So I think if you can get in a position where you're not taking too many hits, I wouldn't go sort of as crazy as a -8 in 29. I think if you can kind of limit the damage this week, it could give you that option of taking a hit in 30 if you really need to, but definitely don't take loads of hits in 29, because then if injuries happen over the break, then you'll be, you know, kind of compounding that misery with an even bigger hit in 30. So yeah, just be wary of that, because you could get players like, you know, Marmoush, you know, Chris was saying earlier about, you know, if they play a lot of minutes in the international break for their countries, and then maybe 120 minutes of extra time in the quarterfinals, will the chance be they could get a rest in 30? Very possible. So yeah, we have to factor that into who we buy, especially if you want a wild card in 31, I think, because if you bring in someone now that you want to start in both 29 and 30, that could be someone that you might only get one fixture out of if they get rested in game week 30.
Well pointed out. See, even after learning from tonight, we need this guy more often on our podcast. Like, we're an addicts army, but it brings, well, it was all yellow, what Coldplay would say, and that's why we've gone to double yellow. We've gone, well, it's actually 2 different scales. We've got the Arsenal with a bit of yellow and blue and a bit of yellow and black. I was there on that famous day when Justin Kluivert scored a hat-trick of penalties.
Lovely.
That's where I got the scar from. So that's how it is. Right, then. It is the all-important time to reveal our bus sides. Our side we would reveal if... Actually, how did the bus team saying come from? Is it like...
It was always cheating, I think. So, yeah, always cheating. Basically, if you got hit by a bus, what would your team look like? And if you were kind of in that induced coma, and you were put up with a kind of strapping, with a protective boot, and you couldn't access your FPL side, how many points you'd get, really. And the lads are always cheating. Brandon and Josh are kind of founding members of that phrase, I think.
Right. Well, you learn something new every day. So that was it when it came to bus crashes and plane crashes just before. Right, Roberto, we got your side right here.
Yeah.
You're going 4-4-2 at the moment. What have you done, or what are you thinking?
So basically, because I rolled in 28, I knew I wanted to avoid taking a hit in 29. So I had, going into this week, 2 free transfers with, I think it was not much in the bank, but enough for me to kind of afford something. So I've actually used one of the free transfers already. So I did one transfer of Milenkovic in for Trent Alexander-Arnold because I was considering Vardiol, and I'll be honest, a few weeks ago I'd kind of had my heart set on that. But the more I've thought about it, the more I just don't rate City's defence at this point, and I need to see something better from them, especially with the way that Brighton are in such good form. I see City conceding, and Vardiol's a lot of money, so obviously his goal threat is there. But to justify that price tag, we have Trent when he's really doing well because of the clean sheets and the attacking returns, and I just don't think we're going to get potentially the clean sheets for Vardiol at the moment. And yeah, he's not got an attacking return Vardiol for a long time, so as much as, obviously Ruben Diaz is back for Man City, so the chances are with Kusanov there as well that can play at centre-back, they'll have Vardiol playing that left-back role. He's not been putting up the most attacking numbers. I mean, his underlying data is not terrible, but I think to commit to that Brighton game, I'd need a little bit more, to be honest. And so for a cheaper price, I haven't had a Forest defender since I wildcarded in Gameweek 6. So I actually started the season with Ola Aina, which, to be fair, if I'd have stuck with it, he's been one of the best defenders in the game. But yeah, he was really good the first few weeks for me as a little differential pick. But then obviously since then he's gone on and done really well. So yeah, to kind of get some Forest defensive coverage, I think is key this week, because the next 2 weeks, you've got to kind of look at it over the next two, because a lot of people will be wildcarding 31. So, if I look at Vardiol, the next two, I think they probably concede to Brighton and probably keep a clean sheet against Leicester. But then I think Forest, away to Ipswich and home to United, that could be 2 clean sheets easily, because Ipswich are struggling. Delap is also on 9 yellows as well. So he could well not be at his peak sort of performance of chasing down and going for it, because he's, probably thinking, I've got to make sure I'm not suspended for 2 games, because I think it's game week 32 that the 10 yellow card rule kind of runs out. And then, United defensively, I would have no concerns over Forest in that game week 30 game. So, yeah, I think Milenkovic is the one, just because Aina is good, but he's a bit more expensive. And I think Aina is not quite as attacking as potentially, a few of the kind of big hauls he's got suggests. Milenkovic is good from set pieces, and Ipswich aren't particularly that good from set pieces, either Man United as well. So, yeah, I like Milenkovic this week. He's quite lowly owned as well, about 8%. So, yeah, I think this is the week for it. The other thing I was thinking of doing was replacing Gakpo, though, Chaza. And this is the thing I'm struggling with. So I need to get your advice with this, maybe in the chat, see what people think. But I've been umming and ahhing, basically. My gut feeling was everyone's going to be doubting Brighton against Man City. But João Pedro's got 3 goals in 3. And basically, I'm in a sort of unique position where I can't get to Haaland, and I don't want to this week. But I will be getting probably him for Leicester because of the fixture being so good. So the plan will be is to get a 1 week punt basically for 29 up front, and then that player will then leave me in 30 for Haaland. So because of that, I've kind of got freedom to get anyone I want as a sort of cheap striker for Gakpo.
I've got a suggestion.
Okay.
Pedro's a really, really good shout, actually. But actually, there's 2. Vera Jimenez might be one, but I reckon Johan Visser. What's your take on him?
Yeah, Visser, I'll be honest, going into sort of 28, 29, I thought I would own him, but I watched the Villa game and I was just a bit disappointed by him. And I think as much as that Bournemouth game, as I said earlier, I think will have goals, I don't think he's been as involved as I would like him to be in these last few weeks. And I prefer to just kind of take a punt on someone a bit cheaper, probably with a bit more form.
Pedro, so it is then. That's what I.
Yeah, that's exactly. So yeah, so when I was kind of looking at this early today, I was thinking it is really down to those two. I think because both being on penalties, Jimenez, I like this week for Spurs, and it's also easier next week for me to get rid of him away to Arsenal. Whereas could Pedro conceivably get something against Villa on penalties potentially? So it might be reducing the pain if I get Jimenez, because it will be an easier sell in 30. And home game with Spurs, who obviously are tired from their Europa League turnaround. I quite like Jimenez this week. He's, again, quite a nice differential. The only one I did consider that's not maybe as differential, even if he is lowly owned, but a lot of people are talking about him, is Evan Nilsson. But as you made the
Bournemouth.
Triple Bournemouth, it's quite a lot, isn't it? And the thing with that as well, that could backfire when I sell in 30. Like if Haaland decided somehow to blank against Leicester and then Evan Nilsson went off against Ipswich, I'd feel a bit annoyed about that. So I think just because I've already got Clivert there, obviously Dango's the main issue, but I think it's one of those things where when you've got players that have fixtures, like I've seen a lot of people selling Palmer this week, selling Dango, and obviously they're not ideal players to start this week, but they still have games, so they could get something. And I think I just got to hope that Dango gets something off the bench. So I think I'm going to go Jimenez, to be honest. I think that's the one I've been most tempted by. I did consider Strand Larson as well, because it's a 1 week punt, but I just don't know if I have enough faith in the Wolves attack, to be honest, despite the fixture being so good against Southampton. I just think Wolves are just, without Cunha, so poor. So
there you go. Well, brilliant stuff. You've kind of got it all mapped out, don't you, with the assistance of the chat? And when I'm in the chat, I mean, I don't think anyone put in their suggestions, but I mean, you got a friend and me. So that's how it is, but great stuff, as always. Brilliant. Now, we've got time for my side. And are we going to go full 2021 COVID postponements, Burnley Turf Moor, Manuel Dennis type mode? And that is, are we going to play 5 at the back? Because that was proper popular, and maybe we could, just for 1 weekend only. It's like a 1 weekend stay at the Airbnb. You were there previously, but you haven't been there for a while. So that's it. Okie dokie. Got 10 at the moment, but this is a good thing, yeah. We've got 3 free transfers. 0.2
nice.
in the bank. Now, this is how I see it. I think Isak stays due to the team value accumulated. Salah, of course, stays. Mateta was it this time last week, but I think for Palace and how relevant they're going to be after this game week, holding him is going to prove more valuable than trying to take him out and then back in. So it leaves with one issue. Defenders. And Trent, unfortunately, is going to go. Despite building a little bit of value, we don't really know when he's going to be back.
No, I think as well, like being so expensive as he is and being blanking this week anyway, I think that's just the injury he picked up in midweek just kind of gives you a good reason to do it, I think. And yeah, I think it just frees up funds for going forward, and that's why I've done it. Because I had Lewis Hall on my bench, right? And he's obviously out for the season, but the kind of money you get by doing that Trent sell gives you so much more flexibility in the future weeks. So yeah, I like that.
I think, all right, transfers in, because I'm having a look at it. Kukurea, I don't like that fixture against Arsenal, despite getting back-to-back 15 points. Already got Forest defence.
Yeah.
Already got Bournemouth defence. So it's going to be up to Vardiol or Ait-Nouri. Now, how I saw it is that City are going to have a double. We just don't know when. And they've got 2 good fixtures. I know you're a bit against Vardiol, which is fair enough, because their stats defensively haven't been great. Let's face it, all season. Ait-Nouri could be it. Like, he could be. But it's just more, well, they've got to play in 34, which means they don't actually have a double in 33. So it depends sort of.
Yeah, they're not likely to double. So
because despite what the Yellow Army have quoted about this guy, we're bringing him in. So see you later. The old time, he's coming in for Trent, and we are going to go. I know it's Christmas in July, Christmas in 25th of December, but in this edition, we're doing Christmas and St. Patrick's Day, which means we're playing 5 at back this week. Chris Wood, captain.
Do you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, because I did consider for a time of maybe Vardiol could be worth it. And do I do benching Gakpo and then get in Vardiol and play 5 at the back as well, and then just move Gakpo to Haaland next week? The issue I had with that was playing 5 at the back, but you never know. It could work out. It could work out this week. This week could be the week for Greaves to get a bullet header. Who knows?
Yeah, and having seen Cole Palmer just still be low on confidence, the vice captaincy is going to be moved. Chris Wood is our captain. That's what I love about this week. Everyone's got different options. Brian Mbeumo is going to take a vice captaincy. He's been promoted as a result.
Do you know who I think? Do you know who I think is not getting much kind of captaincy hype that maybe could be a really good captain this week?
Who's that?
Now we've already talked about Wood. We've talked about Fernandes. We've talked about Haaland. Yeah, Kluivert. I think Kluivert at home. The only thing I think I saw it on Black Box, there was a stat about Kluivert's only got returns in 2 separate home games this season. So a lot of his returns have been away. But being with what we said earlier about Bournemouth Brentford, I think that game has goals and he's on pens. He's nailed to start and will get at least sort of 75, 80 minutes. And Brentford defensively, I mean, they are just, especially away from home, they are so I'm So, yeah, I think this could be really nice for Kluivert. And he's currently my vice captain, but I'm too much in love with Wood to not go for Chris Wood. But yeah, I see the upside because obviously you get the extra point for a goal. It's like the same conversation about Bruno, right? You know, although Wood is obviously the kind of better across the season, this week alone, Fernandes gets, you know, the goal and an extra point for the clean sheet. And the same applies to Kluivert. I don't think, you know, there'll be a clean sheet point if that makes any difference to Kluivert, but it could well be that he's kind of got a couple of penalties and that could be enough to kind of be a nice captaincy differential. But yeah, it's tricky because when you look at the way Ipswich are defending at the moment, they are just kind of, I think because of the fact that game is being at Ipswich, people will say, oh, that's not easy for Forest because Ipswich have beaten the likes of Chelsea and you know, not too many easy teams they've actually got good wins against at Portman Road. But because they're in their position they are in, they have to kind of go for that. And being at home, the fans will want that. So I think that could leave gaps for Forest to exploit. And so that might be always good news for the Woodchopper.
Woodchopper? Oh, geez, I love it. You're full of it tonight, aren't you? So 5-4-1, ladies and gentlemen, we are back playing 5 at the back and full of cracks in between. Now, one last segment. We've got to go. Captain's Corner! We're not sure about the Son, however. So for those that have still got SeamStar and have somehow got access to their PlayStation 2 from 15 years ago, tonight is not your night. But it could well be the weekend for the Norwegian because Erling Haaland at home to Brighton, he has achieved 5 goals and an assist in his last 5 starts against the Seagulls. In addition, at home, the grass patch where the Norwegian loves, 3 goals, 2 assists, and no blanks in his last 3 appearances at the Etihad. Chris Wood has got an astonishing record against promoted clubs this season. This includes 35 points from his 4 outings against such sides. This has consisted of 4 goals and an assist. Bruno Fernandes delivered his season high haul, it being 17 points last time out it was at home to Leicester City.
Yep.
And within the last 3 game weeks, 29 points, 2 goals, and 2 assists. In addition, last night he's got a hat-trick, which included a brace of penalties. Get your head around that. Justin Kluivert, the guy that Roberto had just mentioned, in this last 8 game weeks, he has returned hauls of 22, 13, and 10 points. In addition, scored in the reverse fixture against Brentford. Brian Mbeumo got an assist in the reverse fixture as well. In fairness, could be a fair shout if you want to go proper rogue. So that is it for Captaincy Corner. A notable absentee, it being the Magician. But who is going to shine on his, I was going to say weekend off, but he's playing on Sunday in the Cup final against Newcastle. Newcastle's biggest day, and it could well be a big day for Liverpool too, because it might be double sorrow in the space of the same week after them getting knocked out on a big European night against Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah.
So that is it for the episode. You're on the Woodchopper, aren't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's got to be him. I'm trying to find a reason all season to captain him. I've not found it apart from this week. And yeah, people are getting FOMO, obviously, for Haaland, right? We knew the content creators would do this. They say, Haaland, got to captain him, got to bring him in. But of course, no player in FPL is essential other than Salah. No player is essential. And the Woodchopper has been fantastic this season. And he's actually got more Premier League goals than Erling Haaland. So maybe that just shows he could be the captaincy to kind of take a punt on.
Today is going to be the day that Chris Wood's going to throw it back to you. There you go. Yeah, that's it. Right, that does it for the episode. Thank you guys for joining. We'll be back after the international break. There's so much info to gather. The running begins. The running of different guests. Well, time will tell about that. I've got a bit of work to get on with that. But, Roberto, before I sign you off, is there anything you want to give a plug? Because let's face it, you've had multiple media commitments. You've been the man on the street all week doing it from your beloved home screen. Anything you'd like to give a shout out to?
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate it. It's been really good fun, Chaza. Thanks for having me on. No, this week's been really good fun, I'll be honest. I've been back for a week from uni, kind of not doing as much lectures. And so it means I've kind of been able to dive back into the world of content a little bit more than usual. But it'll get busy again once I go back next week, back into the kind of the trenches of work. But no, it's been good fun. And yeah, I've had the pleasure of going on Fantasy 606 for the third time on Tuesday, and that came out on Wednesday morning. Really good fun managing the listeners team, and I made a certain Bruno Fernandes transfer in that team and gone for him for captaincy. So let's hope that pays off, and we can kind of claw back the 6-point gap currently, I think it is, to Ali at the top of the league. Chris is nowhere near at this point. He's kind of miles off. But Statman Dave is not too far behind the listeners team in second. So yeah, hopefully we can get the title this season for the 606 team of listeners listening to the show. And yeah, also T-Fit, Former's Temporary podcast that I do with my mate from uni, Chris. We recorded that on Monday. So it was a bit of a kind of early pre-record for 29. And that was really good fun with Tom from Who Got the Assist and also FPL MV. So that came out on Thursday, which was really good. Do feel free, if you're interested, check it out on Spotify, Former's Temporary podcast. And then sometimes if I have the time, which I did this week, I can try and put them on YouTube on my YouTube channel, FPL Yellow Army. But yeah, Spotify is where we'll always be. So you can always follow that on Spotify. And yeah, that's basically me this week. I went on FPL Have a Beer as well yesterday. So it's been quite the week of content, but yeah, nice to end it on a nice chill vibe with you, Chaza, and I'll be locking in that Jimenez transfer.
Yeah,
for
nice
sure.
one. Well, yeah, no, you're very welcome for coming on. We'd love to have you back on. We thought you passed the driver's test for this evening when it came to driving the conversation.
Very good. Yeah,
nice stuff. All right, guys, till I would say next time, but on the other side of the international break with more info. Have fun with the blank game week, biggest one so far, and we'll catch you on the other side. Roll on that match day for the 29th time this season. Sausage!